Welcome to 40 Days in His Presence. Today is day number 8, and I'm reading out of 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13. If we are faithless, He remains faithful. He cannot deny Himself. This text is an amazing text, friends. It literally shocked me out of my seat when I read it. Let me read it again to you. If we are faithless, He remains faithful. Can you imagine that? Did you know that we serve a God who by nature is faithful, and that His faithfulness is not dependent upon us? We serve a God who doesn't look us in the face and say, "I'll love you as long as you love me," or "I'll be faithful to you only as long as you're faithful to me." We serve a God who has chosen to be faithful to us all the time. And according to this verse, it says, even when we are faithless, God remains faithful. Now, why is that? Why does God continue to remain faithful to us? Well, faithfulness to God is just part of His nature. And probably one of the closest things on earth that resembles God's faithful union with us is a marriage. Have you ever been to a wedding? Maybe you remember your own wedding. What was the one thing that the pastor said that you remembered from your wedding? Do you remember your vows? Do you, Martha, take Jim to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, to cherish in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, till death do you part? And what does Martha say? I do. Martha has just made a promise that she will be faithful to Jim no matter what. Even if something terrible was to happen, even if they wake up in the morning and they get up on the wrong side of the bed, if Jim doesn't smell the nicest every day, Martha has pledged that no matter what, she is going to be faithful to Jim. And a marriage is a symbol of our union with God. I'd like to take you to a story that illustrates God's faithfulness to us in a beautiful way. It's found in a small book in the Old Testament. It's the book of Hosea. Hosea chapter 1, and we're going to read verse 2 in just a moment. Now, who was Hosea? Hosea was a prophet from the Lord. Hosea's name literally means God saves. The root word from Hosea, which is Hebrew, could also be Joshua. The Greek word for Joshua, or the Greek name for Joshua, is Jesus. Hosea comes from the same root word as Jesus, meaning God saves, or God is my salvation. Hosea was a prophet at the time when all of the followers of God had been going after other gods. They had literally apostatized and abandoned the God that they had once known. Even though they were following other gods, God wanted to show all of His followers that they could abandon Him, but He would never abandon them. God wanted to show them that His faithfulness transcended anything that they did. And so God called a prophet named Hosea. And in Hosea chapter 2 and verse 1, this is what it says. When the Lord began to speak, or chapter 1 verse 2, when the Lord began to speak by Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, "Go take for yourself a wife of harlotry and children of harlotry." Now, Hosea was just a simple prophet, but the Lord told him to take a harlot as his wife, a prostitute. Hosea, I want you to go and take a prostitute and marry her. I want you to be faithful to a woman who has never been faithful. I want you to keep your promise to a woman who has broken her promise over and over and over again. Hosea, I want you to have children and be faithful to a woman who has known many different men. Why did God call Hosea to marry a prostitute, to be faithful to somebody who was so unfaithful? God wanted to illustrate a point, friends. He wanted to illustrate that even though we choose to walk away from Him, it doesn't change the fact that God has chosen to remain faithful and that He will never, never walk away from us. Isn't that an amazing God? A God who is willing to be faithful to us through thick or thin. A God whose faithfulness is not changeable or dependent upon our faithfulness or our goodness. One of the amazing things about God is that even when we're unfaithful, He's willing to take us back again and again. He's willing to remarry us, if you will. In Hosea 2:19 it says, I will betroth or marry you to me forever. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness and justice, in loving kindness and mercy. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord. One of God's great desires is that by His constant and continued faithfulness, His constant and continued pursuit of you, that someday you will give in and choose to be married and faithful to Him forever. You know, the Lord has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. God is faithful to us, friends. Now it's time to turn to day number 8 in your devotional, and let's think about our God who is our faithful King as we open up this devotional and seek Him in prayer. Let's begin.